All right, so here we go. The other health stuff, right? Now, what do I mean by the other health stuff? Right? These are things that you would do typically, so they're not absolutely necessary to have in your routine. But these are things that I do that keep my body in like tip-top shape and top condition and performing well, recovering well also, right? So it's one of those things where there are many, many benefits to these things that I'm going to list out to you. And these really, I'm just listing out four of my favorite. Well, okay, so three favorites and one that I absolutely hate. Like, I think I truly do hate this one thing, but the benefits of doing this one thing are so tremendous that I can't ignore it. And we already know. So if I'm starting with my favorite, which is the sauna, I think we have an idea of what my absolute least favorite, the one thing I hate is. But we'll get there. So, like I was saying, these things that they're not at all necessary, but they are really good to throw into your routine or your health and wellness routine once a month maybe or something like that, just to keep your body in decent condition, right? And I'll explain all four of these things and how they benefit you, and how they actually lead to longevity, right? So first thing we're going to start with, though, is the sauna. The sauna, again, my absolute favorite. I love the heat. I love the sweat. I love all that stuff, right? But when it comes to the sauna, that's my jam, and it's been my jam for years. A lot of years, right? But what is the sauna, right? So basically, you go into the sauna is this room that's a heated up room, right? So it's a small room typically. I mean, sometimes they have bigger ones, but whatever. There's a small room that you go into, and it's heated up to like somewhere maybe 155 to 215 degrees, right? Fahrenheit, right? So this room gets hot, right? And there's two versions of the sauna that you can go for, right? So there's the dry version, that's the infrared sauna version, and there's the wet version or the steam version, right? So the whole point here, though, is you enter into this warm, hot room and expose yourself to this heat so that you raise your core body temperature up some degrees, right? Now, there's some benefits to that, and I'll set that aside real quick because it's just one quick note about the temperature of each, right? So typically for the infrared sauna, the way that works is it basically sends infrared rays deep to penetrate your skin, deep into your muscles. And so it raises your core body temperature more like internally than externally, right? So you have the opposite of that, which is the wet sauna, which is usually by steam. And that is basically you heat things up, you put some water, you use the steam, and it heats up the entire environment. So the external environment is hot, and then that raises your core body temperature. It takes more, it's basically you think like if you heat up a room to 215 degrees, more than likely you'll want that to be the wet sauna because you're heating up everything. You're raising your core body temperature from outside in. Whereas on the infrared sauna, you don't need it to be as high of a temperature. That's why you can go on the lower end with 155 degrees because you could still raise your core body temperature because that's kind of more from like an inside out type thing, right? Because of those rays penetrating your skin and getting deep into the muscles, raising your core body temperature from there, right? So those are the two types of sauna and what I typically do, I've done both, but I really, really like the infrared sauna because it's just, I guess typically it's just easier to breathe, right? Like when you're sitting in a steam room and like first of all, it's hot, and then it's very, very, very humid. Like it's really difficult to breathe in that. And it tends not to be as comfortable for me. So I will opt for the infrared sauna because, you can still breathe fine and still sweat a lot. And I mentioned sweat, but the funny thing about this is sweat isn't even like the fact that it makes you sweat, that's not one of the greatest benefits. Actually, it's probably on the bottom of the list of benefits that you get from going to the sauna. So, and I know what the general perception is just like, hey, look, you go to the sauna to sweat. What else? You sweat these out and sweat that out and so on and so forth. I'll deal with that a little bit later on, but that's really not even top 5 on a list of benefits that you get from the sauna. It is a benefit, but when I list off the other ones, you'll see what I mean, right? So the next thing that I just want to make sure that we're clear on is that like a lot of these findings are, and I guess you can assume this for most of the stuff that I say here, right? Most of the findings are both experiential and they are scientifically backed, or they're one or the other, but I'll let you know which it is, right? So I'll let you know if there's some studies that said this, and then I experienced it. Or there's some studies that said this and I didn't experience it. Or I don't know any research that's backed this information, but here's what I experienced, right? I'll let you know what is what exactly. But a lot of this stuff in terms of the benefits the benefits that you gain from going to the sauna, they are heavily researched and scientifically backed, right? There's a couple other ones that got my body to adapt and change in a particular way, and then I'll just lay those out as well so that you get a total picture of what it is that we're actually doing here when we're going to the sauna, okay? And I also just want you all to know that I'll refer to a Dr. Rhonda Patrick in a lot of these instances and a lot of these benefits. She's done a boatload of research, and she's talked to a whole bunch of different other doctors who have done research as well concerning the sauna. So she's pretty much my go-to source for anything sauna, and I'm just keeping it straight up. So I'll probably throw a little link in the description for you to kind of just peruse her website and everything like that, and look at all the studies that all this information is coming from. So I'm going to be paraphrasing quite a bit, but just know that I'm mixing in some of my personal experiences, but when it comes to the scientifically backed stuff, it's coming from her, okay? All right, so what are all these benefits of doing this crazy thing, sitting in this hot behind box and sweating up a storm? Well, listen, look, one of the main benefits to sauna use is basically just improved heart health, right? And I mean, the improvements the improvements of your heart health basically are comparable to the improvements that you get from exercise. Okay, that's big there, right? Which means there's improvements in blood pressure, there's improvements in heart function, and there's also less of the bad inflammation in general in dealing with a lot of the portions of your heart. So it has very, very comparable outcomes as exercise, right? So, and because of that, think about it, like because of that, and as an additional benefit, right? That means your chances of getting or popping up with any of the heart diseases, right? Like cardiovascular disease, congenital heart failure, any just heart disease in general, period, like which is the leading killer of everybody well, I'm not gonna say the world, but at least I know in the U.S. that's the leading cause of death, right? Heart problems, right? So anything that even falls under that umbrella of heart issues, sauna use decreases the chances of you getting any of that stuff or developing any of that stuff. So right there is just a win, right? I mean, so because we got to take care of our hearts, and we typically don't. But I think we are moving in a way that we're becoming more cognizant of. Yeah, maybe I need to take care of my old ticker over here, right? I don't know why I sounded like old ticker. Man, every time I speak, I feel like I'm getting older. Okay, whatever. Okay, let's set that aside. Set that aside. But that also, just going back to the inflammation part, I want to touch on that a little bit, right? So there are studies that show that sauna use decreases the amount of C-reactive protein that's in your blood, basically, right? And C-reactive protein really only pops up due to inflammation, right? And I'm not going to go into all the weeds of what that is and how it's made up and where it comes from and all that fun stuff. Just in general, know that sauna use decreases inflammation and it decreases the instances of anything being inflamed, especially when it comes to your heart, okay? And as good as it is for your heart, it's also just as good for your brain. So what sauna use does is it also causes you to develop new neurons, right? So, and that one's pretty awesome to me because it's just like, well, yeah. So it allows you to develop new neurons, and with that, and I guess it does it through this mechanism. Through another protein. I don't have the exact name of it, but there's this other protein that your body produces basically under this heat stress that can also potentially heal the symptoms of anxiety and depression. So sauna use is also really good for your brain. So we already have two major benefits right here so far, right? One is it's great for your heart. And these are all backed by studies and everything like that, comparable to exercise. And it's also great for your brain. So, and again, another thing that's backed by studies. And it's just amazing that more people don't do it. So remember, it improves, sauna use improves blood circulation, right? So we said, hey, look, it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. But there's also really good to prevent any cognitive disease or prevent cognitive decline. Why? Because again, you have better blood circulation in general. That also means you have better blood circulation going to your brain. So what, and this is all like, this is done through a multitude of studies, right? Sauna use can actually slow down the rate of decline in Alzheimer's patients, which is that's major. That's major. So it also just in general slows down cognitive decline, which that's a pretty big benefit, right? So again, and let me go back a little bit, right? So it's like it's great for your heart, it's great for your brain. It's preventative in any of these major diseases that seem to be taking us out everywhere. Of course, sweating it out is going to be last on that list, right? And the interesting part concerning the Alzheimer's patients, right? Like, so not only does it ease the symptoms and the rate of decline in Alzheimer's patients, it actually is preventative as well here, right? So by increasing the circulation of blood to your brain, that acts as a preventative measure, preventing you from getting Alzheimer's in the first place. So it's just like, so again, good for your heart, good for your brain, very, very good for both. Now, sauna use also promotes better brain function in general, which kind of means, look, your brain actually will work more efficiently. So it enhances attention span, and it will work more effectively, right? So you'll be able to keep your focus more too, right? So it's interesting. Like there's two hormones that your body produces when your core body temperature is raised up that way. It's norepinephrine and prolactin. And simply put, they're responsible for more efficient and faster brain function, right? So, if you're say watching a 10-minute video, you don't cut off after the first 30 seconds because you have an attention span that's past a rock. Just all right, I'm playing, but kind of serious, right? So yeah, that's also another pretty big benefit with the brain. So notice that there are a lot of cognitive benefits to, a lot of brain health benefits to sauna use. Okay. Now we get to my favorite I'm always talking about my favorite. This is my favorite. I almost sound like my son. That's my favorite. Everything is my favorite. But I will say the number one benefit as far as my list is concerned, I may as well just say my favorite. Sauna use improves metabolic function. Now, that's kind of like a catch-all phrase there, but I'm gonna start right away with it increases growth hormone naturally without steroids or other things. No injectables. It improves your growth hormone, and I mean, like it improves growth hormone production significantly. And again, I can't overemphasize this. When I say significantly, I mean significantly. Dead serious. Now, I have these two studies that I wrote down the results for and all that fun stuff, and I want to rattle them off to you real quick. So, one study showed two 15-minute sauna sessions at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, separated by a 30-minute cool down, resulted in a 5-fold increase in growth hormone. That's 5 times. That's 500%. 5 times. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. And if that's not impressive, there's another study that had participants do dry sauna at 176 degrees Fahrenheit twice a day for 7 days. And they showed a 16-fold increase in growth hormone by the 3rd day. That number doesn't even make sense to me. 16 times the amount of growth hormone production by the 3rd day. And there was another part. Those effects lasted a few hours after the sauna. So your body is being flooded by growth hormone throughout the sauna use. So if you combine that with exercise, you have, especially along the lines of resistance training and efforts to gain lean muscle tissue, well, guess what? You just gave yourself a 16-fold or 5-fold boost to your workouts, right? So there's probably my number one reason for using the sauna, right? Getting heart health, absolutely great. Brain health, absolutely great. Get to get a little bit more lean muscle tissue. That's the winner. Say you're a meathead without saying you're a meathead, but but that's the idea here, right? Like, it improves growth hormone production by a lot. And I mean, these are not like statistically insignificant studies or statistically insignificant results. That's major. 5-fold to 16-fold. That's a lot, right? So another big benefit when it comes to metabolically, it lowers your fasting blood glucose levels, right? So people with diabetes or people who are pre-diabetic, sauna use could help them out quite a bit as well. And then what it does to your muscles, basically, it improves. Well, there were some things that showed that it can improve muscle endurance, and I can see that. I don't think I've experienced that many benefits in terms of muscle endurance from sauna, but I'm not sure, right? So, but there are some studies that say that it can improve muscle endurance. And the last benefit really comes down to it's another muscle building thing here, right? But it slows down. So there's this process of, all throughout your entire day, you're building up protein and you're breaking down protein. So you're building up muscle, you're breaking down muscle. And those processes go on all the time, all day, all night. That's just the way the body works. So you're building and you're tearing down at the same time, right? So there's this net protein gain or net protein loss. And what sauna does is basically slows down the process of breaking down protein protein degradation, right? And it allows your body to produce these heat shock proteins, which also kind of jumpstart protein synthesis. So we're kind of tipping the scales a little bit here, and then maybe look at it that way, where it's just like, hey, I'm building muscle, I'm breaking muscle down at the same time, right? And whenever you have one side, the muscle breakdown side, a little bit heavier than the build up side, the scales are tipped, right? What sauna use does is basically it tips the scales the other way, where you have more on the protein synthesis and muscle building side than you do on the muscle breakdown side. And that ultimately is good because it leads to, again, lean muscle tissue. And I have already explained how, and I probably will explain even more again, why lean muscle tissue is so important, especially as you age. So those are all the non-sweating benefits to sauna use, right? So, but here's the thing. Why did I really put getting your sweat on at the end here, right? And it's primarily because this is a very contested idea, very debated upon idea here. And let me break it down a little bit more for you, right? So again, heart health, absolutely great. That's a win. Brain health, absolutely great. That's a win, right? So prevent a lot of heart disease, a lot of brain diseases, and that's ultimately more important than just getting your sweat on. But what people have kind of separated themselves into camps doing, and I'll explain exactly where I stand in a little bit. There's this group of people who say basically like one of the benefits to sauna is that you sweat and you can eliminate toxins from your body or heavy metals from your body through your sweat. Okay. And that's, that was a big trend, right? Because that's what led into this whole idea of detoxing, right? So I'm going to detox through my sweat. I'm going to get it all out. I'm going to sweat out all this lead or mercury, cadmium, whatever. Heavy metals, for the most part, is what I hear. Other items, people have taken it pretty far in that sense, right? So, but they say you could sweat it out, and you're fine. But there's this group of people, a group of doctors, and a group of individuals who said that there is no evidence to support that you can sweat out toxins, that you can detox through your sweat. And then, coincidentally, the very next sentence that they typically say is that, well, your body does enough to be able to detox. So a lot of that stuff is going to come out in your urine or other things like that, not likely to come out in your sweat. So basically you want to work your kidneys and you have your organs in place to be able to do all the detoxing that you need. And then they go next usually with, buy my product. It's a detox product that you swallow. And I've seen that way too many times. Now, granted, at the time of them speaking, there might not have been a bevy of evidence to say that you can detox through your sweat. And please keep in mind that a lot of these professionals labeled this new trend as something silly and something that was lacking evidence. Okay, so as another aside to an aside here, this is going to sound a little strong, but some doctors get on my nerves. and this is a perfect example of that, right? There have been so many times in history, in recent history, actively going on now, that doctors and other professionals within the medical field, within the fitness and health and fitness industry, like there's so many times where professionals would label something as, or label a phenomena as silly, as just, oh, here's the next fad that's coming through, right? Because there isn't enough data to support it. And that kind of grinds me up a little bit for this reason, right? Because these professionals have clients and they have people that come to them. And, that's where we have this phrase where it's like, you follow the doctor's orders, right? But the problem is so many doctors and so many professionals in the medical industry, in the fitness industry, in the health and wellness industry, there's so many professionals who are so by the book that they blind themselves to other legitimate ideas. And I know that might seem a little strong, and I don't mean to offend or anything like that, but that's one of the main reasons why, like, alternative medicine and and especially, like, if you talk about a functional medicine practitioner to any general doctor in the medical industry, especially any stalwart in the industry, they will immediately just look at you like you have two heads. Like the alternative medicine, functional medicine practitioners are frowned upon. Now, in some instances, I get it, because you have situations in which these certain functional medicine practitioners would take things, to the extreme, when probably the best choice would have been a medication of some sort, right? And so sometimes they get a little lost in the sauce and it get a little too complicated, where it was like, hey, we don't want to put this toxin in our body because, well, even though this would absolutely save your life. And, so there's a balance that I don't think is there, quite frankly, when it comes to functional medicine practitioners. But that doesn't mean that the whole idea of alternative medicine and it doesn't mean that, some of the functional medicine practitioners are just so way off base that we can't, even listen to them, right? So what I found, though, is that a lot of them are frowned upon, and a lot of alternative medicine ideas are frowned upon because they lack financial incentive. Hang with me. I believe there is a financial incentive for some of these professionals to relegate anything that deals with alternative medicine to the trash heap. Because a lot of that stuff, and I might be getting into some murky territory here, but so be it. A lot of the stuff that deals with alternative medicine and a lot of the stuff that the functional medicine practitioners deal with is prevention. And that's actually the exact opposite of what our current healthcare system is here in America. Our healthcare system is not at all designed for prevention. It's wholly reactionary. So it makes sense that you would have the people who make the most money off of a reactionary system frown at the people who are preventative. And I think I'm just going to leave that there. We could debate about that. That might be a different podcast topic. It might not be. Listen, if you feel that strongly about it, you can let me know in the comments. But that's my perception. So anyway, a bunch of studies came out basically that showed that you can eliminate toxins through your sweat. and then it's just like, well, okay. And I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here. So then why is this last on my list here, right? Like, why am I explaining this last? And why am I saying eliminating toxins through your sweat or using sauna for that reason is the least of the benefits here, right? And it's primarily because there's this group of studies, and there was one in particular that was done where people were separated into groups. One group did vigorous exercise, basically. I think it was running so that they could build up a sweat. And the other group just did sauna use. And they basically measured the amount of sweat or amount of the heavy metals that was present in their sweat, that they excreted through their sweat. And what they found was, through sauna use, while there were some removal of the heavy metals, it wasn't really that significant. But of the people who were actually exercising, they expelled a lot of heavy metals from their system, right? Now, I'm sure, and I didn't really, read the study front, cover to cover or anything like that. So my hope is that the amount of heavy metal in each person's bloodstream was one of the controls, right? Because it would, like if you have somebody over here who's doing a sauna, but they don't really have that many toxins in their body, then of course they're not going to expel that many toxins. So I hope the controls were in place. I think they were. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe you could look it up and let me know. But there was a study that showed basically, even still, if this group of people had a high amount of toxins in their bloodstream and they expelled a lot of it through their sweat, the amounts that they actually excreted through their sweat was similar to what came out in their urine. So that goes back to what those other guys were saying when there was not enough evidence to support. Right? So the reason why it's lower on the list of benefits to sauna use is, according to that study, you're really not expelling that many toxins from your body through your sweat in that way. It's mostly water, right? And other like electrolytes, right? So I would say a combination of sauna and exercise, and maybe that's another support for that as well. Not even just in terms of what I spoke about earlier, in terms of lean muscle growth hormone production, right? But it also could be for getting rid of toxins from your body through your sweat. So a combination of exercise and sauna use. Woo. So I think there's a way that you can combine the two without completely burning out, all the time. And this is what I've done for years. Right now, I'm not actively in it because, I got things to do. But there's coming up a time, and it's fast approaching, where I'm jumping back into a whole program that includes sauna use. So if you like this segment, here's another one for you. Click over here. And if you want the entire podcast, go this way. Click on that one right there. And once again, I appreciate you. All right, you take it easy.